My name is Emma, I'm 32. Last Saturday, I drove to celebrate my mother's 60th birthday. A pearl necklace resting on the passenger seat. 2 weeks' pay wrapped in hope. The restaurant echoed with voices, the kind of place where every sound lingers. I promised myself this time would be different. This time she would notice me. I inhaled, forced a smile, and handed her the box. Her eyes skimmed past me, treating me more like staff than her own daughter. If you've ever felt invisible at your own family table, you'll understand. Because before dessert was served, she said something that ended the story we'd always lived. Growing up, Marcus was the sun. I was the shadow. Straight A's from me were expected. His B+ was rewarded with ice cream. At my valedictorian speech, Mom praised Marcus for supposedly coaching me. He had been playing video games while I stayed up nights drafting it. In college, I juggled 2 jobs, a 3.8 GPA, and rent paid with coupons. Mom marveled at Marcus finding himself during his gap year. When I graduated summa cum laude, dinner revolved around Marcus' vague maybes. Maybe he'd apply to community college someday. At 28, I managed to buy a tiny apartment furnished secondhand. Mom asked why I didn't move closer, so I could help Marcus. When I earned a promotion, she told the neighbors it was a family achievement, hers included. Conversations about my work never went deeper than, "Does it pay well?" I was the one who called every Sunday, organized family gatherings, made reservations, double-checked allergies. More often than not, I paid. After all, I had the big city salary. Meanwhile, Marcus lived rent-free, showing up late to jobs without consequence. When hangovers cost him employment, Mom was on the phone begging his bosses to take him back. What began as small favors for Marcus became a regular financial obligation. Just until he gets back on his feet, Mom said. Translation: cover your brother's bills. I lived on generic groceries, clipped coupons, drove a car older than my career. The cost of her approval was higher than pearls. And still never enough. At gatherings, Mom rewrote family history like she collected royalties from it. Marcus was cast as the wise one, dispensing advice I'd never once heard him give. My own accomplishments shrank while his smallest acts became folklore. Every retelling ended with me missing what truly matters. I learned to swallow the heat, to write it all down instead. Dates, words, glances. The way affection tilted toward one chair. If this feels familiar, drop where you're watching from. Because survival sometimes means silence. Sometimes it means refusing to beg. I chose pearls, believing they might finally surface the truth. 2 weeks' salary in a box that closed with a prayer. I told myself milestones make people reflect. I told myself mothers soften when birthday candles multiply. At 60, surely she'd see me. Instead, dessert became the knife. The host led us through chandeliers into hushed conversation. Mom wore royal blue, authority stitched into every seam. I set the gift at her place, smiled and sat straight. She opened Marcus' pharmacy bag first, praising vanilla candles. $12, I thought. Applause followed like a parade. When my velvet box opened, the pearls caught the light just so. "Oh, very nice," she said, voice flat as folded linen. Aunt Linda whispered, "Emma, they're beautiful." Mom's smile tightened. The waiter returned for drink orders. I studied the wine list. Hope tasted costly, disappointment cheaper. Both hard to swallow. Marcus told a story about HDMI cables. Mom laughed like he'd discovered cold fusion. He could sell water in a rainstorm, she beamed. I mentioned a campaign I had closed. No one noticed. Sarah caught my eyes, a small apology folded into her glance. Appetizers came. Mom rewrote history for the table. Emma's valedictorian speech. Marcus coached the emotions. He had been 14, headphones on, door shut, controller in hand. I buttered bread I couldn't taste, recording her words in my head. My promotion, she told Uncle George, was a family victory. Marcus, she added, had offered me workplace advice. In reality, he'd only asked me to take calls more quietly. I sipped water and logged the lies. Cousin Amy asked about my award. Mom brushed it off. Just a participation thing. 5 names nationwide had earned it. 8 months of work reduced to dust beneath her trained smile. Meanwhile, Marcus' everyday life was mythologized. Faces shifted, concern, pity, disbelief. I practiced detachment. Marcus cut steak like it held answers to philosophy. Sarah studied lettuce like it held instructions. I adjusted my napkin and chose restraint over spectacle. A line I'd once underlined echoed, document. Don't argue. Patterns matter more than moments. Count lies. Count glances. Count the tilt. I remembered the pearls, the overtime hours behind them. Dessert arrived. Candles waiting like witnesses. Mom dabbed her lips, lifted her glass, and cleared her throat. The room leaned in. She rose, blue silk glowing in candlelight. Smiled like a queen before a decree. When I think of family, she began, voice carrying, I think of love that shows up unasked. Marcus has always known that love means presence, not performance. He calls me every day, listens, remembers. He truly cares. Polite applause sputtered, then faded. My weekly calls, reduced to obligation. Her gaze turned toward me, soft and sharp at once. Success without love is emptiness. Achievement without heart is ego. He climbed my neck. My hands stayed still. She went on, her warmth polished sharp. Emma is very successful. Job, apartment, awards. Nice. Very nice. But she treats family like a meeting, feelings like results. Uncle George studied his napkin. Aunt Linda's fork hovered. Sarah stared down, then up, like testing gravity. Mom lifted her chin, performing sorrow for the room. The saddest part is she doesn't even know what she's missing. She spends her time impressing strangers, forgetting those who love her most. She sends money instead of affection, reservations instead of relationship. Applause never returned. The air thickened. My heart struck once hard, then turned silent. Mom set her glass down with perfect theatrical care. And honestly, sweetheart, she said, her eyes shining with pity. At this point, you're not even worthy of being called family. Cutlery stilled. Conversations died. Even the candles seemed to pause. Ice water clarity. Shame no longer had a place. It was washed away. 32 years of repetition suddenly revealed themselves as a simple design. This wasn't about my feelings. It was her narrative. Bias dressed up as wisdom, performed each night for her faithful audience. Marcus wasn't some oracle. He was just a man shielded. And I wasn't the issue. I was the evidence she refused to face. Evidence that love came with conditions. Evidence that favoritism wore pearls. Evidence that family was compliance as long as she held the pen. I looked at my mother and finally saw the playwright. Not a seeker of truth, but a guardian of myth. My spine straightened, rooted in something older, stronger. Breath came easier. Words lined up like matches ready to strike. Not anger, resolution. Not tears, choice. Not drama, proof. I reached for air and found it waiting. Her pearls caught the light once, then fell still. The scrape of my chair was soft, like a gavel's tap. I stood, wrapped in silence as heavy as velvet curtains. Every face turned. Even the servers froze mid-step, plates balanced. I didn't shake. I didn't apologize. I didn't fold. I opened my mouth and stepped into my own voice. After her verdict, it was my turn. I didn't shout. I laid out receipts. You told Mrs. Chun my promotion was a family effort. Here's her text repeating your version, word for word. I placed my phone on the tablecloth like an open ledger. You told Mrs. Patterson you helped me buy my apartment. You called it our investment strategy. That's false, Mom. You told me buying was foolish, that I should back Marcus instead. Chairs shifted with the silence. Aunt Linda's whine froze midair. 3 years of phone logs. I continued, tapping my screen. Marcus and I exchanged texts twice a month. Logistics, nothing else. No career guidance. No apartment advice. No relationship sermons. Nothing. I met Marcus's eyes. He couldn't meet mine. If I'm not family, fine. But stop using my name as currency to impress your circle. Stop spending my effort like it belongs to you. Her face drained, then filled again with rehearsed defenses. For 2 years, I've sent $500 every month. Groceries, utilities, surprise bills. Quiet deposits disguised as duty. I planned every gathering, booked every reservation, covered the extras. I'm done being erased on cue. I set an envelope on the table beside the cake. Cash for tonight's bill, plus a generous tip, because I refused to be accused of stinginess on the way out. The waiter exhaled, as though he had been holding up the room. Marcus finally lifted his head. Emma, I didn't know about the money. It isn't the money, I said. It's the math. Subtract me in public, add me in private, equals compliance. Sarah slipped her hand into his. Something real flickered in her eyes. Mom reached for her oldest prop, sympathy. I'm a mother. My heart. She began, voice trembling. Your story, I cut in, keeps love behind a velvet rope. Flattery gets access. Silence makes me the ungrateful villain. Boundary, I said, clear and steady. A clean word. A new key. No more monthly transfers. No more logistics. No more myths. If I'm not family, I won't bankroll one. If I am, stop rewriting me to fit your script. Uncle George nodded once, the accountant recognizing balance. Aunt Linda whispered, good. Like a prayer let loose. I pushed back my chair. The ribbon of a gift bag brushed my wrist. I felt taller, without anyone shrinking to make room. I turned to Marcus. Now you know. Do something honest. He swallowed hard. I will, he said, voice raw but true. Mom opened her mouth, but the room refused her cue. I walked to the door and chose a different ending. The door shut behind me, and the city exhaled with me. I walked home lighter, not happy yet, just unburdened. Silence greeted me like fresh sheets by an open window. For the first time, I slept without rehearsing comebacks. Morning brought missed calls, texts, relatives spreading versions. Emma's unstable, some whispered. Work stress, others excused. All rehearsed. I didn't correct them. Energy is precious. Explanations are gifts. They had spent theirs. In therapy, a chair angled toward my future. We drilled boundaries like reps, clear, kind, firm, repeat. I tracked dates, patterns, costs, and wrote new household rules. Truth over loyalty. Boundaries over access. Love over performance. The withdrawals came sharp. No Sunday calls. No fixer reflex. My hands twitched for calendars and apology bouquets, then stilled. In the quiet, my real life began. Meals tasted brighter when they weren't payment for belonging. Marcus came by with coffee and honesty unpolished. I never said those things, he admitted. But I never stopped her either. I liked being the favorite. We sat with that truth until it lost its bite. I'm moving out, he said. Full-time work, night classes, accountability. Sarah's hand on his shoulder was a promise. I trusted actions more than apologies. I told him so. We hugged. Not as characters in Mom's play, but as siblings. Mom sent packages wrapped in lace and scented stories, labeled forgiveness. I returned them unopened, or donated them quietly. Receipt kept. Kindness can keep its distance from chaos and still count. Forgiveness for me is a window, not a door. Work felt lighter without the drain of appeasement. Evenings stretched wide, filled with friendship and oxygen. I learned the sound of a home that wants me. Laughter by the sink, music without critique. When relatives pressed for the real story, I answered with less. Boundary, I said. I wish them well. I'm done. Peace looked small from outside. From within, it was enormous. Like clothes finally cut to my size. If you've ever chosen peace over permission, I see you. Have you set boundaries with family who rewrote your worth? Share your story below. Your words might free someone else. Subscribe to Echoes of Life for more stories of betrayal and healing. I didn't win her approval. I won myself. And that was enough.